So every year we all end up getting some new piece of gear, and I'd like to share with you the pieces that I found to be very useful in the past year of 2022. Now, that doesn't mean that this stuff is brand new to the market for this past calendar year, but it's just stuff that I acquired and that I really appreciated in one way or another. Now, here's your typical YouTuber plug that you always hear. It sucks to do, but if you like this channel, please hit the subscribe button, and the bell icon will let you know when I put up a new video. I have noticed on my analytics as of today that 98% of the viewers on this page aren't subscribers. I don't know if I'm showing up in your feeds on a regular basis with the YouTube algorithm driving that, but if you subscribe, you'll be sure to not miss any future videos. And if you like this video, please click the thumbs up button, and if you want to share this, well, there's a button for that as well. Now, the first item that I've found very useful for 2022 is the Vertex T-drive overdrive pedal. I did an in-depth video on this earlier in 2022, and I'll put a link to that in the area below for you to check out. Now, not to rehash that video, I went down the train wreck amp rabbit hole. Yeah. And for $99, this pedal that I got used is pretty impressive. It's British flavored with some Vox and Marshall elements to it. There's a ton of gain. It's very musical. The gain is, like I said, there's a lot to it, and if you need more than this, you might want to reconsider some other options. But it's really easy to work with. There's no EQ control, so it pairs nicely with an amp's EQ settings that's already happening. I don't happen to have any desire to replace this on my board at the moment. If I end up doing some sort of gig where this pedal is not the flavor needed, yeah, maybe it'll get swapped out for that situation. But I've used this pedal on home recording stuff with my cover band, my original band this year, and there was no feeling that I needed to change this out. It's certainly a sleeper pedal for sure. Now, the next item up is also a pedal. It is the Xotic EP Boost. Now, I've had this on my board early this year, and I haven't gotten around to doing a video on it yet. But this is a very nice and very simple boost. There's one knob for a level control. There's some dip switches on the inside to tailor the boost and some of the EQ response. I've had a lot of other boost pedals, and they've had more controls and extra features, and I always find that I'm fiddling with them too much. I'm always tweaking it, and it essentially, I end up being my own worst enemy. I end up start using that boost pedal either as an always-on pedal, or I use it as a drive pedal to push my amp a little harder. And then when I try to go back to using it as a boost for solos, I have to go through and change all the settings back for that option. And, you know, I found pairing this with any of my drive pedals, just for an experimentation, but primarily I'm using it with that T-drive pedal that I made mention of. I have found a very simple setup where I can put it on one setting just to boost for the T-drive, and if I use the boost pedal on its own, as like an always on or just to push the amp a little harder, it's just a couple of notches higher on that. So it's a lot easier to make those transitions even in a live setting at a gig. You know, it is really nice to have on a cleaner amp. It adds a little bit more dimension. So it's nice to fatten things up on my Blues Juniors clean channel. So it's worked out pretty well. And again, its simplicity is absolutely wonderful, and I love using this thing. And again, for $99, I got this used through reverb.com. So it was a really good steal overall. But they are available new for like $125 for most of the major online retailers. And I also decided that I was going to upgrade my Tele this year. The pickups that I had in there were okay, but I wasn't real satisfied. So I went with a set of Seymour Duncan vintage stack pickups. These are replacement Tele pickups that, you know, they've been around for quite a while. These are there's been a lot of replacement Tele pickups that have come out in the past few years. And it can kind of be like drinking from a fire hose when trying to find what you're looking for. So I went with something that's been around for a long time. And even though it may not be as trendy as certain other pickups or certain other brands, these style pickups, these stack Seymour Duncans, have been around for a couple of decades, if I'm correct. And it was very simple solution. I just wanted a big Tele sound without the hum. And these really deliver. Again, it's easy to get distracted from newer versions with the credibility of getting something that's really trendy and the bragging rights. You can tell your friends you've got certain boutique pickups that might be really desirable at this time from a company that's really getting a lot of attention. But I kept it simple again, and I am beyond pleased. The bridge pickup is big and fat with plenty of twang and cut without the noise. I'm going to do an in-depth video on these pickups real soon. I have to say, though, this has put my Tele a lot more in my hands for playing for a bigger sound than I would normally be going for, and it's certainly not lacking in any way. I know that this item in my hands isn't a guitar, and when I have posted bass content on this channel, I got two responses. One, I'm not a great bassist, and two, this is a guitar channel. Yes and yes. But I scored this Sterling by Music Man short scale bass for a couple of reasons. Having a bass guitar handy is great for recording, even if I'm just playing root notes, and just filling in that sonic area for recording makes for a more familiar and full sound. I've given demos to people in the past, and with well thought out playing and very well executed with no bass. And it sounds like an unfinished demo to them. And I've played recordings that took an hour to complete with a bass track on it, and it got a lot more attention because it sounded complete. From a songwriting perspective, it's also great to work out arrangements and even melodic parts in a completely new way. Think of all the great songs where the bass is implying a melody, and sometimes having the instrument on hand is a lot easier than calling a bassist to come over and do a track. This is a lot easier to play with a 30-inch scale versus the 34-inch scale of a regular Music Man bass, meaning it's a lot easier for guitarists like myself to move around on. Some short scale basses are kind of meant for younger players that are beginners, so the features can be kind of limited in comparison to a regular scale bass. But this is a smaller version of a great bass with the standard features maintained. So it's not like you're really missing out. It's got all the tones you could work for in an electric bass. It's just smaller. Standard. I got a volume control right here. It also has a little boost, kind of cool. A three-way selector for the pickup options and a tone control. All the hardware is pretty much standard, and it plays wonderfully. There's no issues. The only thing you have to do on short scale basses is you want to get short scale strings just to make sure you're not winding or you have to do cuts further down the line. I'm sure bass players could go into far more detail on that than I could. And as again, I look at this more as a tool, the same way I look at maybe having some soft loop software. I'm not a drummer, but I use a lot of drum loops, and some people say, well, hey, this isn't a drum loop channel, but I can't get a real drummer in here to record. So this kind of puts that same type of feel where I can put something together very easily for what my needs are, and it's a great tool to have. And finally, the big deal for me in 2022 is this. My Epiphone, inspired by Gibson, ES335. I know I mentioned my interest in hollow bodies in a previous video, especially the recent release of the Noel Gallagher model. A semi-hollow guitar is very, very much out of my familiar territory, so I thought dipping my toes into that pond with a version like this was a very reasonable idea, and I am beyond happy with it. I got this through Sweetwater, and it's the first time I purchased an instrument online and had no issues. I got this just before Thanksgiving, and this has been the instrument I've been grabbing a lot each time since its arrival. I plan on doing a big in-depth video on this soon, so don't worry. For players that might shy away from an Epiphone because it's not a Gibson, I can testify that those feelings may be valid. But once you play one, it's a great guitar for the money and a wonderful option if you can't justify the expense of a Gibson. I have some very minor mods planned for this, but nothing really ridiculous. The pickups are very nice. The hardware and no issues on that, so that's always something that people worry about with import instruments. No problems whatsoever. But I do have a couple of tweaks planned just to customize this a little bit. Anyways, that's my gear of the year for 2022. What was the stuff that you guys got in the past year? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to know what you found to be useful in the last year for your musical adventures. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you soon. Take care.